In South Africa, discrimination against white people is not only legal but also actively endorsed and practiced by the government itself. And anyone who dares to complain about this injustice is just labeled a racist or a right-winger. What has been unfolding in South Africa over the past 3 decades is not an isolated policy failure, nor a uniquely African political curiosity. It is a preview, a live demonstration, if you will, of how critical race theory, once elevated into law, reshapes every aspect of society. In South Africa, DEI, as it is known in the United States of America, is encoded into our legislation, enforced through our regulations of the government, and backed by the coercive power of the state itself. And the results of this decades-long experiment now offer a rare glimpse into what liberals across the world have had in mind for the entire Western world and for every single country for a very long time now. For over 3 decades, South Africa has served as an experiment in what global elites want to turn the entire West into. There's a very good reason why Nelson Mandela was, throughout his entire post-prison political career, elevated to the status of a global icon and presented as the political messiah that the most prominent liberal global leaders often claimed they could only ever aspire to be as great as their beloved Madiba.
President Obama penned the foreword for Mandela's 2010 memoir, Conversations with Myself. He wrote, "His example helped awaken me to the wider world and the obligation that we all have to stand up for what is right. Through his choices, Mandela made it clear that we did not have to accept the world as it is, that we could do our part to seek the world as it should be." When President Obama visited South Africa this summer, Mandela was so ill the two were unable to meet. Still, Mandela's inspiration played large during the president's trip.
Critical race theory, long before it was taught at Ivy League schools in America and experimented in universities in Sweden, served as the key driving force behind everything that South Africa's government's transformation policies amounted to, and inspired the more than 120 race laws passed by the ANC since 1994, each of which expressly and unashamedly discriminates against white people as the main or biggest target. But this is far from the only way in which South Africa served as a ground zero for global DEI. And also, South Africa seemed to have been the experimental grounds for every single liberal policy that was ever introduced all over the world. You see, in 2006, nearly a decade before the United States of America, for example, introduced homosexual marriage with the Obergefell v. Hodges ruling, South Africa already quietly became the very first country outside a few very liberal countries in Western Europe to pass a single national statute legalizing homosexual marriage. But it gets worse. Even 10 years before that, in 1996, South Africa was the very first country in the world to constitutionally prohibit any form of discrimination based on sexual orientation. You see, in this liberal regard, South Africa was the world far ahead. In 2003, the ANC government under Thabo Mbeki then passed the infamous Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act No. 53 of 2003, which introduced active racial discrimination against white South Africans based on race beyond just affirmative action, expanding it to business ownership, representation in business management, access to resources such as water, and the rights to procure government contracts. You see, BEE, as it's known, established long-term structural expectations, such as corporate reporting on demographic transformation and accountability benchmarks in procurement and ownership, all based on the idea of fighting so-called systematic or structural racism, which is the very notion underlying the critical race theory behind DEI in the first place. Soon, the most liberal universities in the world began following South Africa's example. In 2003, for example, Uppsala University introduced a preferential admission or affirmative action policy for law school applicants who came from a migrant or non-Swedish background. This policy was, of course, based on the exact same policies that had been implemented in South African universities since 1999. This entailed reserving at least 10% of its law school admissions to people of immigrant backgrounds. Then, two Swedish women who were denied entry into the university's law school despite having better marks than every single one of the minorities who were admitted, consequently took Uppsala University to court and won the case in 2006. The Swedish court concluded that universities broke Swedish law by discriminating against ethnic Swedes in favor of people of color. Even today, the most woke political leaders in America, such as the mayor of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, refer to this absolute corrupt and economically crippling country of South Africa as the model for his own city and his own ideology and the policies that he wants to pursue. Specifically, in terms of the ANC government's transformation policies. South Africa didn't just lead the way in terms of applying critical race theory or other social liberal causes, it also served as ground zero for so-called green investments. Integral to the so-called watermelon environmental tyranny, green on the outside but red on the inside, the tyranny that is completely crippling many industrial economies today. South Africa was also the first country to turn its massive pension fund, the largest of any developing country, over to so-called climate investing. They led the way for most of Europe to follow suit and create the climate madness which had prevailed throughout the Western world over the last decade. But South Africa did more than just set the example for DEI in America for the rest of the world, it also actively exported it. You see, in late 2023, South Africa's aviation regulators quietly began attaching broad-based black economic empowerment criteria to international air service licenses, effectively turning operating rights into instruments of compliance with its racist laws. This meant that international airlines, many of which have no South African ownership structures to begin with, or subsidiaries in South Africa, or local equity partners, were suddenly expected to demonstrate compliance with South Africa's BEE framework. For dozens of foreign airlines flying to and from South Africa, this created a particular dilemma. To improve compliance levels, carriers would potentially need to restructure local commercial arrangements, from forming partnerships with qualifying South African entities, or adjust procurement channels, or establish South African corporate vehicles capable of earning BEE ratings, all just to retain their license to even operate in South Africa. The organization Sakeliga consequently took the South African government to court, arguing that transformation criteria were being imposed without statutory authority in aviation law. The High Court thankfully ruled in Sakeliga's favor against the Air Services Licensing Council, declaring that conditioning licenses to international airlines based on their racial status is unlawful. The consequences of the DEI experiment in South Africa are evident for all to see. Its capital flight, its collapsing infrastructure, its shrinking investments, and its chronic energy instability, and an economy struggling under the weight of regulatory distortion. When access to markets, licenses, contracts, and opportunity becomes tethered to demographic compliance rather than competence, the entire system rots. Inevitably, investor confidence erodes as growth stalls. And while the rhetoric of equity intensifies, the very material foundation of prosperity are broken down. South Africa, once the jewel of the continent, the undisputed economic engine, now stands as a cautionary tale of how DEI practices hollows out the very structure it claims to transform. In the recent video, we outlined a number of ways in which South Africa serves as the warning to the rest of the West. You can watch this full report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right now. And do support our work by becoming a paid member of the Willem Petzer Group. Only with you investing in us are we able to produce videos such as these every day and pay every one of our employees' salaries. Thanks for watching, goodbye, and God bless.